distinguished participants sitting on the dais as well as in the audience. All of you are distinguished. At the outset, let me thank the leadership of the Madras School of Social Work and the Professor K.N. George Foundation for inviting me this year to deliver the annual lecture held to commemorate and celebrate the life and work of the legendary Professor K.N. George. And I'm indeed most honored to have been asked to do so. More so, since I have neither the basic academic qualifications in the area of social work or development studies, nor has the bulk of my experience been in this area. My CV was read earlier and that clearly indicated that. Nevertheless, I'd be very happy to share my insights, given the more concentrated involvement in this sector in the last 10 years of my vocational journey with World Vision. We are living at present in very tumultuous times, both globally, in Asia, and in India as well. Wars, conflicts, violence, breakdown of what we took as granted institutional frameworks and structures, geopolitical changes and power dynamics, some of which I'll outline shortly, have made the last few years times of very, very rapid change, requiring individuals, families, communities, and societies to display extraordinary levels of resilience, strength, and courage to navigate these times. Let me begin by highlighting what we are seeing in our world today, especially after the very globally affecting COVID pandemic, which adversely affected much of the economic and social gains that the world had made in the previous decade, that is between 2011 and 20. And what we are seeing since then is high levels of polarization in societies on political, religious, ethnic, caste, class, linguistic, and race lines. And this is causing much fragmentation in society. There is the othering of people who are different from us and a mistrust of the other. There is often lack of civil communication, and discussions between these disparate groups are often disrespectful, disparaging, and personally insulting. And you can see some of these commentaries and statements which reach their peak during the electioneering process in the political arena. Wars and internal conflicts, whether it's the current conflict, hopefully settled at least for some time between the US, Israel, and Iran, and the consequences for several countries in the Middle East, Russia, and Ukraine, conflicts in Gaza, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, DRC, and other places in Africa and the Middle East have led to casualties, including large number of civilian deaths. The military deaths of Russians in Ukraine alone is estimated to be as high as 500,000 people. And though this may all seem very far removed from us in India, we have seen how the problems affect us too. Shortages of oil and gas, problems in many of these affected areas with roads, bridges, buildings, water supply and sanitation, economic crisis ranging from severe to significant, depending on how countries are affected, directly or indirectly cause deprivation of the poor and vulnerable in many of these places. What we are seeing and how India gets affected is economic slowdown, high rates of inflation, and increasing levels of unemployment, both as a direct result of the energy crisis, which is the shortage of oil and gas, a lot of deglobalization which has happened in the last few years, and there has also been an undermining of the global institutional order. Organizations like the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization, and many other UN agencies, many initiatives on climate change, unilateral resetting of tariffs by the US, for instance, and the re-emergence of global trade blocs would severely affect the world. And it will affect us in India as well, and particularly the poor over the near and medium term. The continuing impact of climate change, which many people deny, even without wars and conflicts, were already causing global warming, climate extremities, unpredictable weather patterns, and we've had one of the most severe summers this year, affecting food production and increasing levels of hunger and food insecurity for the world's poor. All these events would see a continuing reversal in the gains of the war that we had made against poverty in the first 2 decades of this century, especially in certain parts of the world. This will be much more severe. Those directly affected by wars, conflicts, historical and continuing structural problems of poor governance and political instability, like in Middle East and Africa. The world is also seeing growing levels of inequality, with increasing concentration of income and wealth in the hands of a relatively small minority in most countries. The rich getting richer, the poor relatively getting poorer. We have also seen in the last year the dismantling of the USAID and changing priorities in much of the aid infrastructure globally, both multilateral through UN agencies and bilateral directly by certain governments. And that has resulted in lower levels of funding for the critical areas of healthcare, education, issues like DEI, violence, exclusion, abuse, trafficking, seen under the lens of gender, disability, caste, race, and children, and economic development itself, livelihoods, and climate change in the recent past. The nature of support is also changing. We are seeing increasing support from corporates and foundations, but these sometimes can be in very limited domains of interest and increasingly in the nature of social finance and results-based financing, where the benefits are indirect rather than as direct grants or philanthropic support to the poor. The good thing, though, is that in many places, governments have stepped up their funding for the social sectors, and that has hopefully addressed many of the gaps. The term VUCA has been used to to describe our current world. It stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. In a VUCA world, individuals, families, communities, and nations would need to develop the ability to predict and adapt very quickly to rapid changes and latent threats in our environment in order to thrive. Otherwise, bare survival itself would be a challenge and it would take huge efforts. And my own experience with a global organization actually is a fact that these events can actually overset us. These events can affect us very, very quickly. Other terms are also now being increasingly used to describe the world we are in. There is a term called BANI, which is brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible, and that it is believed describes the current state of affairs in our world, which can be fragile, like the egos of many of our world leaders. There's a constant worrying with the threat of nuclear war, triggered by fake news and misinformation, where the known cause and effect model does not work anymore. And sometimes due to the irrationality of decision making, despite the ocean of information that is available, there is sometimes the inability to comprehend and make sense of emerging scenarios. Another term that is used is tuna, turbulent, uncertain, novel, and ambitious. All these simply highlight the fact that there is so much global uncertainty triggered by irrational decision making, unfettered ambitions, extreme polarization, which keep things always on edge.
வணக்கம். மெட்ராஸ் ஸ்கூல் ஆஃப் சோஷியல் ஒர்க்ல நீடிய காலம் தொடர்புடைய டாக்டர் KN ஜார்ஜ் அவருடைய நினைவை நாங்கள் அனுசரிக்க இன்னைக்கு டாக்டர் KN ஜார்ஜ் மெமோரியல் லெக்சர் நடத்தியிருக்கோம். டாக்டர் செரியன் ஜான் சார் தான் நம்மளுக்கு லெக்சர் கொடுத்துருக்காரு. இது நம்மளுக்கு 2வது முறையான லெக்சர். இதன் மூலம் பல மாணாக்கர்களுக்கு சாரோட பங்களிப்பு, அதன் மூலம் இன்னைக்கு இந்த லெக்சர்ல பாவர்ட்டி மேக்ரோ லெவல் சேலஞ்சஸ் பத்தி பேசியிருக்காங்க. ஸோ அதை குறித்து பலருக்கு விழிப்புணர்வு, அதை பற்றி எப்படி நம்ம சிந்திக்கணும், செயல்படணும் அப்படின்ட்டு அவங்க எடுத்துக்காட்டுகளோட பரிந்துரைத்தார்கள். அது எல்லாருக்கும் பயனுடையதாக இருந்தது.
ஒரு நிறுவனத்தை கட்டி எழுப்புவது என்பது ஒரு சாதாரண விஷயம் இல்லை. அதுவும் தென்னிந்தியாவிலேயே முதல் முறையாக அமைக்கப்பட்ட சமூக பணி கல்விக்கென்று அமைக்கப்பட்ட நிறுவனம் தான் சென்னை சமூக பணி கல்லூரி, மெட்ராஸ் ஸ்கூல் ஆஃப் சோஷியல் ஒர்க். அது 1952 தொடங்கினது, MCJ அவர்கள் தொடங்கினது. ஆனால் 1953 1953லேயே ப்ரொஃபஸர் ஜார்ஜ் இந்த இன்ஸ்டிடியூஷனில் ஜாயின் பண்ணி தொடர்ச்சியாக 50 ஆண்டுகளுக்கு மேலாக இந்த நிறுவனத்தோடு இணைந்து இந்த நிறுவனத்தை கட்டி எழுப்பியிருக்கிறார் என்பது மிகவும் சிறப்பானது. அவருடைய நினைவில் இந்த ஒரு முக்கியமான ஒரு லெக்சரை ஏற்பாடு பண்ணியிருக்கோம். வருஷம் வருஷமா இது தொடர்ந்து நடைபெறும். இந்த வருஷம் திரு செரியன் தாமஸ் அவர்கள் அந்த நெடுங்காலமா வேர்ல்ட் விஷன் இந்தியாவில் பணி செய்து, அதுக்கு முன்னால பேங்கிங் செக்டர்ல பணி செய்து, அந்த அனுபவங்கள் எல்லாம் கோர்த்து இன்னைக்கு நமக்கு ஒரு லெக்சரா அவர் கொடுத்திருக்கிறாரு. மிக தெளிவா இந்த நாட்டினுடைய பல்வேறு நிலைமை, நம்ம என்ன எதிர்நோக்கி இருக்கிறோம், எதை எதிர்நோக்கி நம்ம செல்ல வேண்டும் சொல்லி தெளிவாக எடுத்து வச்சிருக்கிறார். அவருக்கு எங்களோட நன்றியை நாங்கள் தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறோம்.
Yeah, so the main thrust of the lecture today was about trends in global poverty and vulnerability and the role of humanitarians, the emerging role of humanitarians in such a situation. So we should be grateful for the fact that we have seen a significant reduction in levels of poverty over the years, but the battle is far from over, and conflicts and strife make it worse. And even the current ensuing strife, which globally affects all of us, is something that will contribute to poverty and vulnerability in the future. And so the point is that at the end of the day, we all need to work together to make sure that inequality is reduced and that we are able to see an end to global poverty, then that we use the right measures to also look at relative poverty, that while there is decline in absolute poverty levels, to look at the whole idea of wellness itself, health, education, various kinds of standards, and to see our country grow and develop as we move along. So that's the thrust of the message today.
School of Social Work in the வருஷம் 75 years complete ஆகிறது. 1952 ஆரம்பிச்சு the institute has become, as Dr. Raja Samuel said, the best in the South India and the fourth in all India ranking. The man behind the development of this college was Professor K.N. George, and every year we remember him by organizing a memorial lecture for him. He was the architect of this college. The entire life was dedicated for the growth and development of this college. This college has become a crown and the jewel of the city of Chennai, because hundreds and thousands of people have come out of this college, are leading in various disciplines like human development, social work, and psychology. This will continue to lead and produce the leaders, catalyst for social change in future also.
So I represent the Dr. K.N. George Foundation. I am his daughter. This is Anita Koshi. And it has been 2 years now since Madras School of Social Work has collaborated with the Dr. K.N. George Foundation. Every year we have a memorial lecture. We also do this in Kerala simultaneously. And it is done every year on his birthday, June 21st. So I really want to thank the chairman of this institute, Mr. K. Matthew, IAS. He has been, for his constant encouragement, also the principals, they've been very, what shall I say, motivating and very supportive and encouraging to keep alive the memories of what my father had done for this institute.
This year's K.N. George Memorial Lecture is more significant because we're celebrating our 75 years of legacy of MSSW. So it becomes more important that we recall a person like K.N. George, who's the founder. Rather, I would say not necessarily the founder, because Mary Klabala was the founder, but he took MSSW to greater heights. And I'm sure remembering him on this day is very important, and it is more significant because it's our 75th year. Thank you.